Life's Tough, but Superheroes Are Tougher. A podcast about real-life superheroes in the entertainment industry with your host, Stephen Shane.
This episode is brought to you by the Podcast Services Division at Life's Tough Media. Having your own podcast allows you to creatively reach all types of audiences, from clients to prospects, to your most loyal membership base. And by utilizing studio affiliates located around the world, coupled with quality remote recording capabilities, Life's Tough Media makes having a corporate podcast easier than ever before. Contact us for a no-obligation consultation at info@lifestuff.com or visit lifestuff.com to learn more.
Welcome back, everybody, to Life's Tough, Superheroes Are Tougher. This is part two. Frank Caliendo, he was so good, Alex. We just couldn't stop the riff.
Can't contain him into one episode.
So we hope you enjoyed part one. And today we have for you part two.
We also went to Chicago, which was another fantastic one.
Right.
And she had just had another surgery, and she probably shouldn't even have gone. Yeah, she probably shouldn't even have gone. But Tom Holland was there.
Oh yeah,
and Chris Hemsworth. But Evans, But Evans asked the funniest question. He goes, "Who's your favorite Avenger?" And she's like, He goes, "It's Bucky, isn't it?" she's like, and then afterwards, she's like, "He might be my favorite now." But we go to Chicago. Tom Holland's there. And she was really excited about that. But he was in the middle of shooting Cherry, right?
Cherry.
So he's down a ton of weight. He's everybody told me he's super nice, but he's tired. He's just really tired. And we didn't want to bother. And I think you saw us we were just hanging out because I never wanted to go in places we shouldn't be. Right. So I was always kind of hanging around just outside of places we could get kicked out of.
That's smart.
It was, yeah. I mean, and other people were like, "You can go in there." I'm like, you know what? Unless the right people invite us, we'll just wait and see what happens. Later, some of that stuff happened, but I was like, we never ended up going in there. But she met Tom Holland. It was great. But Chris Hemsworth, we were around there for a little bit. Oh, yes, okay, all right, what's going on here? So I was making he had some boxing friends, some friends who were boxers. I made a bunch of them laugh, and they were having a great time. And I started doing, I am Thor, son of Odin. I know him, he's a friend from work, that kind of a thing. And they're going, "Oh my God," I think I was in Russian accent. "This is so good, this is great. You do more of this, Chris Hemsworth." So that was another phenomenal moment. And then we went to take a picture with Hemsworth. Well, Juliet got a picture with Chris Hemsworth. And then I go to take a picture with him. I got a picture with him and Brian, names, head of security. He's a good friend.
Oh, Vickers. Brian Vickers. Yes. The big guy. Brian's a strong man, by the way.
Oh yeah. I've seen.
You can't tell. It's very tiny.
Yeah, right. I've seen him pull a building.
Yes, he pulls tractor trailers. He's one of those guys.
It's unbelievable. He's massive. I mean, he was wider than Chris Hemsworth, but women were fainting on their way to Chris Hemsworth. You just
But how do you aspire to pull track? I remember the first time I said to Brian, "Brian, can you pull a tractor trailer?" He's like, he goes, "Anybody ranked in the top 100 can pull 2 tractor trailers."
Right. I thought he was going to be like 8th grade.
Yeah.
I've been doing that since 8th grade. So we go to take the picture with Hemsworth. Actually, we took the picture with Hemsworth. He thinks I want to get another picture for some reason. I didn't, but I wasn't going to stop him if Chris Hemsworth's like, "Let's take another picture." But he's like, "Oh, well, all right." So he grabs his phone and he takes a picture with me and Vickers and him. And Kitsy got a snapshot of that too. So my daughter's like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "What? You're in Chris Hemsworth's camera roll." I'm like, "Is that a thing?" I didn't even know if that was a thing. I had no idea. So those were just the most amazing experiences because I've always been around sports stars for my son every once in a while. But I don't know. I never do anything for myself, but when it's my kids, and I always tell that I always said this. I said I might have said this to you, but you're always so busy. And I'm sure I said it to Garrett, but he just doesn't care what I say. But no. But I said where you guys should put the pictures are the cameras are right after people walk out from meeting the superstar.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right?
You crying. You
Tom Holland fainting.
But I only did that once, Stephen. I only did it once. I'll never do it again. I've apologized. I've apologized to everybody.
But that's, you see, we would stand. It was like, you know, being a fly on the wall, watching people come out, and it's like when you don't know at Disney World or Disneyland where the picture gets taken on the roller coaster. That moment is so candid. That's so amazing that you see people coming out of there. Their eyes are so big. To me, for a parent, it's even better than watching them with the famous, because they can't take it all in when they meet the movie star.
No,
they meet the movie star. It's shock. When they come out, the emotion hits and they're gone. That's why some people will buy extra pictures and do a couple of them, because the first time they're like amazed by it, and it doesn't hit them even until they've got it in their hands. They're like, oh, this just happened.
Now remember, Frank, also there's a good, sometimes 100 to 200 foot walk.
Yeah. From
the time you leave the studio to the time you pick up your photo, there's a real anticipation there of receiving your photo and then getting the digital. And, you know, we offer digital downloads for everybody who gets a picture. Not everybody does that. There's a serial number on all the photos, right, and you go in and you could download and you could upload it right away to your camera. So that's the other part of what we do, is the reason, like, you're walking out, you have little arrows on the floor to go pick up your photo. Mm-hmm. It creates a real sense of anticipation. Again, part of the experience of it all.
I've never seen anything like it. I got, you know, and for my kids have gotten to do a lot of cool things. But to me, especially in a downtime for my daughter, that, you know, this is what got her through. I mean, that's why I said I'm indebted to you for so much, because you guys have done so much for me and her and our family. It's got an emotional tie to me, and I'm going to start working on her being an intern for you eventually. So don't think it's not going to come back to bite you.
You know, we do a lot of these shows. Alex and I do our regular podcast, and then we do the Life's Tough podcast, and we talk about the impact and influence on superheroes in society, where it's sort of like the superheroes influence culture, but culture also influences the superheroes, right? So you have a film like, we talk about a film like Black Panther that did $1.4 billion. You talk about a film like Wonder Woman and what was going on in the world at that time, where you have, you know, an Israeli actress playing one of the most iconic characters, and the movie does $800 million. And you have Captain Marvel. Now you have Shang-Chi coming out. And that also is going to be a global phenomenon, right? After you had a film like Crazy Rich Asians that did so unbelievable. And there's this, you know, something that Alex and I talked about even on our last show, where 11 out of the top 15 films of all time are superhero sci-fi genre films. They're Star Wars, it's Avatar, it's Avengers, it's Black Panther. So, you know, look, you come from the sports side, where that influences culture a lot, right? The sports influence the culture, and the culture influences the sports. I think you're starting to see this, I don't want to say a shift, because sports is what it is. But I think that there's a large segment that's now influenced by superheroes, Frank. Look at the films. So talk a little bit about, like, you know, what you see with your family, with your friends, when you're seeing the politics mixing with the superheroes, mixing with the culture.
Well, I think it starts a lot of discussions. I mean, I think that's, you know, why is this happening? I mean, you even watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when Sam and his sister can't get the loan and stuff like that. Although my joke line on that was, does the MCU not have Ace Universe? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ace would definitely pay for Falcon to come take pictures.
So if Falcon were real, he could. I'm not going to say how much, but I know the range that he could. Like, I know a range an actor can make, so I know the range an actual superhero in society could really make. Because in a weekend, he'd basically be Robert Downey Jr. Do me a favor, Stark is now not just industry. It's enveloping the universe. So, Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, comic books have always been that. Comic books have always had a piece of society, you know, a societal, let's say,
influence.
Influence, but also a narrative about, you know, and giving you insight into things in different ways. But comic books were always kind of, you know, pushed aside and said, this isn't real art, this isn't real literature. But if you talk to Todd McFarlane, he's like, they can't get enough of us. You know, everybody's in line. Everybody's in line. All the Marvel, all the DC, they're all bought up. And now they're coming to me. They're coming to me. And, you know, so Todd, they're like, Todd, come on. So I say so a lot, but because I can never think of where I just was. I think a huge impact, and people learn, and kids see their idols and listen. And it gives us it gives stories that adults might see. It's kind of like the Muppet Show. The Muppet Show used to be, if you go back and watch the Muppet Show, the Muppets that was a show for adults.
Totally.
But kids loved the Muppets, the puppet version. But if you listen to what was going on underneath, you would see there was so much more. And I think that's what's happening with the MCU, you know, with all the superhero stuff. We're seeing that. And here's the other thing. Superheroes, when you think Christopher Reeve and you think Superman, he was a perfect guy, you know, he did everything right. He was like early Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There wasn't a huge range to what he was always going to do the right thing. Well, these are flawed characters. But Tony Stark, listen, most of this stuff wouldn't happen if I hadn't have done screwed something up. All right. So realize that I'm either firing a missile somewhere or getting kidnapped for some odd reason and having to build an iron creature to get out of it. All right. So that's the deal. So they're flawed characters, and you see that a lot more. I mean, we're seeing it. We're going to, you know, when this is out, people have seen it with John Walker in the
big time.
in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean, it tells you, hey, amazing how good of a guy Steve Rogers was, because that's why he was the one. He was the one. You know, he was going to jump on the grenade. That's the guy, and is good. John Walker is a great soldier, but great soldiers do bad things to be great soldiers because it's end to the means. Well, that's not what Steve Rogers is going to do. He was going to do it right the whole way. He might have disobeyed orders, but it's because the orders were dumb. It wasn't because he was going to hurt somebody. So yeah, I think there's a lot of that in society, which is
and by the way, Bucky has PTSD.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's sleeping on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have those elements also, which I think are important, right? It's
real.
Important to show that it's not all, you know, sunshine and roses. By the way, you mentioned the Muppet Show. So that was my favorite show growing up. No question about it. It's a show that I watched every single week. You might even laugh at me. Now that it's on Disney Plus, almost every single night I watch an episode or two. Milton Berle, Madeline,
fantastic. Madeline Kahn.
Yeah. I mean,
Rich Little. Let's do some more George Burns.
Yeah,
there we go.
George Burns, and the most brilliant characters to me are the two guys in the rafters,
Statler and Waldorf.
Oh my God!
Why do we always come here? Where the soul never go? It's like some kind of torture to have to watch the show.
I mean, the brilliance of that show, and again, you know. When it comes to the superhero films, you know, you've been doing this now really for the MCU, you know, since the first Iron Man, but you can go back to Blade, you can go back to the X-Men films. And when those films are on, they stand the test of time, Frank. They do. Mm-hmm. You can watch X-Men 1, you can watch X-Men First Class, you can watch the Blade films, and they're really good movies. And they are, you know, you watch Superman, when Superman 1 is on or Superman 2 is on, like, you kind of stop what you're doing and you kind of watch it, right? I mean, like you never, you know, it's kind of like they get you rope in with Shawshank Redemption and some of those films. Frank, they rope you in each time with Shawshank. I don't know why.
That's just my friend Andy. There we go.
Oh my God, Andy Dufresne. Okay, so also, so as we see, Frank, we're seeing all these characters come out, whether it's Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, whether it's Professor X. you know, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins. You've got all these world-class actors doing this stuff. You know, there is a little bit of clash of politics, as you see in these films, and superhero stuff. And obviously you do all the voices and stuff. I mean, how do you see them interacting? Like, would George Bush talk to any of these characters? Would Obama or Clinton talk to any of these characters?
Well, I believe wasn't I around? Was I around when the original Iron Man?
Yeah.
You know, I would have been the president of the United States of Stark, if you will. And TS, as I call him, TS, Tony Stark, little Tony Starkification. I mean, he's going to build a rocket suit. He's not going to be Rocket Man. He's not going to be Elton John. He's going to, what we're talking about? It's okay. Yeah. Whatever. You know, yeah, I think about that. What else? You said, what was going on during President Obama? Let me be clear. This is the situation. We have a clash of two different sets of superheroes. We have Team Iron Man and Team Cap. And we are fans both of these teams, yet we are divided. We must bring them together. Not unlike the Infinity Stones, probably a bad example. But let me be clear, we are inevitable. Yeah, so I think that would be my take on that.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, and then we had the X-Men while Clinton was president. I think we had Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and the X-Men crew.
And that blue lady. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. We'll just call her Blue. Oh man, I gotta stop. Self-censorship in the world of 20.
Wait, what movies came out while Trump was president, Alex?
Well, all the movies did. In fact, I was president during every single one of the movies, and I did a tremendous job. A lot of people say I could have been Tony Stark, but I was very, very busy. Whether building real estate or selling real estate or doing whatever I had to do. And then I was president. And probably, not unlike Tony Stark, a tremendous leader, the best leader. I had nanotechnology. I had nano hair. A lot of people don't know that, but I called it the Mach 5. That was a tremendous, and it was a Mach, I could call it. I kept it in the briefcase, brought it to my head, and it did a very good job. If you notice, I'm the same color as Iron Man. That's why I do the orange. That's what we do. It's very, very good.
Yeah. And then obviously, what Wonder Woman was 84. I think Ronald Reagan was president.
You're going way. Well, yeah. You're going way.
You don't think anybody will get the Reagan reference?
No, well, that's all I can actually do. I think that's.
What about John Adams? John Quincy Adams meeting.
But it is interesting how we're laughing a little bit, but there are a lot of political themes, whether it's V for Vendetta, even in Wonder Woman 84. You in the X-Men films, the first trilogy of X-Men films, the governments were very involved in it. So there is definitely a merger of politics in these films that are a reflection. I think your dog wants to get into it too.
Who's got the dog? I don't have a dog here.
Oh, it's not your dog.
That was my ventriloquism. You guys didn't you saw my mouth move.
But Frank, politics has always played a role in these films and in these television shows. And now that you're seeing, look, even Falcon and Winter. First of all, WandaVision, right? Mm-hmm. You had the military involved. And now, even in Falcon and Winter Soldier, there's very much the whole show is political in its nature.
Yeah. But that's always been. I mean, there's always been that. I'm trying to figure out the right phrasing for it, but it's an interesting dynamic because there's always that power struggle of depending on who's in charge, who likes the government and who doesn't. I mean, it's really funny how that changes. If you look over time, if you look in the 60s, right? The free love and, you know, the hippie culture and stuff like that. That was like the FBI. You can't trust them. That's the worst thing in the world. Flip that to 2020, and people are like, you know, on that side, while Trump is president, like, you got to trust the FBI. That's who can you not trust? And you're going, wait a second, that's actually flipped. So in terms of, you know, looking at all those politics, yeah, there's a lot in there, but it's and I think it's good because it gives us an opportunity to look at some of these things in an interesting way through the art. And yeah, I think it's great because it brings real life stuff, and it makes us question things we should question. And you know, I'm not one who's always going along with. I like my kids to have critical thinking. There is quite a bit of critical thinking that goes on in a superhero movie. Yeah, and they, you know, Captain America does it almost out loud. You know, Tony Stark would be like, "Well, what's going to make me the most money? Because that's where I'm going." And you know, and then Captain America's like, "I don't know if this is what we should be doing." And then, you know, and then Banner's over there going, "Geez, guys, I'm getting green, so green." Yeah, so I'm going back to Asgard.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you before we leave it tonight, Frank, is you obviously come in contact with a lot of the voices that you do. You know, whether it's a Madden or a Gruden or a Shaq.
I did a sketch. This is way before, but I did a sketch with Donald Trump in like 2000, maybe 10 or something like that. Way before he was running for president, and one of my jokes with it was funny because they did all these jokes right to him. It's like, I decided to run for president. Wait a second, I decided to not run for president. Right? I decided to not run for president. Now I'm running for. I'm not even sure if I'm running for president. I do a lot of running. I'm always on the treadmill running for president. I did, yeah, Shaq Daddy, Charles Barkley is another great one. Trying to think of some of the, you know, John Gruden, he always loves that stuff. You know, even going back to when I first started, Pauly Shore's like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" And I did his voice to him. Norm Macdonald just tweeted out the other day. He's like, this is probably about a month ago now. He's like, their impressions are the worst thing in the world because usually impressionists are not funny. But the only guy who could do an impression of me is the greatest impressionist in the world, Frank Caliendo. Like that was his tweet, and all comics around the country, because Norm to me is one of the funniest people ever, if not the funniest. Yeah. But the average person doesn't always get, because he has no fear. He doesn't care. He will just say he's a psychopath. Rob Schneider called me today. He's like, "Hey, I'm out in Arizona." He actually goes, "Can you be in my movie?" I'm like, "Okay, are you really calling me?" I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this or not, but he called me.
You got 20 minutes.
I got a part for you in this movie. I was like, "Okay, I'll do it. Why not?" But normally that doesn't happen. But you know, he's like, we're talking about Norm Macdonald, and Norm's insane, but brilliantly insane. I'm trying to think of some of the other people that I.
So what's typically the reaction? Are they good spirit? I mean, like Gruden and Madden,
a lot of the sports guys worry that it's going to hurt their money, their bottom line, because most of the times they're put on pedestals, right? So when you're put on a pedestal, especially a coach, you put on a pedestal, people's lives are really dependent on you. That when these football players, it's crazy, and I don't want to, liken it to the battlefield, but it's a miniature version of that. It's not, the stakes aren't as high as somebody fighting for their country or something like that, but it's pretty crazy. So when you start making fun of it, if you're not from the locker room and they get a little weirded out by it, and they worry a lot that it's going to hurt their money. But then they realize Madison Avenue can write for the impression better than they can write for the person. So you unlock something. That's what, I've heard Kevin Pollak talk about. I talk about, Dana Carvey talks about it. Jay Farrow, everybody talks about this thing. You unlock the impression, and then other people can do it because they're copying you doing it. But you unlock it, Madison Avenue can write for it too. So when you see Gruden doing a commercial, he texted me one time. He's like, "I just got done doing a commercial where they told me to do an impersonation of you." And what it was he wasn't being big enough. So they're like, "Do it like this, man. Do it like Caliendo. That'll make people laugh more and buy our product."
That's funny. That's funny.
So yeah. And I was in that sports niche for such a long time. it wasn't so much by design, but just by laziness. I was like, I'm making so much money doing this. Why am I doing anything else? But yeah, people get worried about that. But whenever Charles Barkley said to me, he goes like, every time you do me on the radio, I end up making more and more money. Next thing you know, I get a new commercial for Taco Bell or Weight Watchers, which came right after Taco Bell. So, it actually opens up more avenues for them when somebody, unlocks what's the take on the person. And most of the people, I had a lot of people asking me to do impressions of them. So that would happen a lot.
Are the president's good spirits about it, like Bush and
I was supposed to, if you remember years ago, I was at the Super Bowl. It was in Dallas, Texas, with the opening of that field. And I was in Jerry Jones. Yeah, massive. It was the Steelers versus the Packers. And I was in Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, his box. And they kept showing John Madden and George W. Bush. And those two impressions at the time were my biggest impressions. Well, I was cleared by the Secret Service to go in there in between them and be on TV during that. I was actually on the previous Super Bowl on Fox, but this time they were gonna actually get me talking to those guys. And what happened was the Steelers started to come back, and Jerry Jones went to sit down in between them, and they didn't want to ask Jerry Jones to move. So I was sitting there. Jamie Foxx was just sitting. He was inside with his sunglasses on for some reason. And Laura Bush came on. Oh, President, I just saw. She called him the president. She goes, the president. I just saw you this morning on TV, and that you were fantastic. I'm like, would you maybe tell Jerry Jones to move? Could you do that? So. Right. Most of the time people get it. I didn't know Trump while he was president. George W. Bush apparently liked what I did. Clinton was before my time of, I wasn't really out there as much while he was president, but that was Daryl Hammond world and Phil Hartman Saturday Night Live stuff.
But by the way, what do you think George Bush was talking to John Madden about while they were out there sitting in the booth?
Well, can't get a hot dog up here, man. That's the thing. A lot of times you think that in Jerry Jones's box you can get a hot dog, but they don't have hot dogs. But they have steaks and chicken and a vegetarian entree, but which I don't know. I mean, I've never had a vegetarian entree, but it doesn't sound very good. I'm not a fan of those as well. I don't eat vegetables. I take my Flintstones vitamins, 10,000 strong and growing, man. I overall, I think everybody, everybody gets it, especially, I mean, you've seen the way Tom Hiddleston does impressions. Tom Hiddleston had one of the best lines.
Yeah, he does fantastic. Anthony Hopkins dead on.
Right. And I did a little, because I just messed around with it, and I was just doing it from the movie. And I was like, whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, should possess the power of fall. Right. So do that. He goes, yes, well, I don't really do lots of impressions of people. I do impressions of people I work with in films. I was like, oh, I do impressions of people I've seen in films. So we're very similar. And he didn't mean it in a mean way at all. But I'm like, it was one of those moments I said that he kind of laughed. He was like, right. I'm like, yeah, at that time, that was Tom Hiddleston was famous, but not as famous as he is now. Like Tom Hiddleston could go places and people, because he has kind of reddish hair, or he had reddish hair at the time, and I think maybe a goatee or something. If he looked like he might be Loki's brother, but he didn't always look exactly like Loki. And he actually, when he put some stuff in his hair and it made it a little darker, when he was at Ace, he looked like he was Loki. But then as he was going to other places, some people saw him at the airport and said he was super nice and stuff like that too. But it was one of those things, like he was famous, but he wasn't at the level of even Chris Evans. I mean, when Infinity War and Endgame took all those Avengers up to a massive, another 10 levels. Everybody became where Robert Downey Jr. was. Mm-hmm. And then Robert Downey Jr. just became himself. He became Downey became, they all became, like I said, they all went to the level where Robert Downey Jr. was. And then Downey doesn't even know he's not Tony Stark anymore. Have you seen, right. I mean, if you watch him, he's like, him. Yeah, he's like, we've developed a nanotech to get us to Mars. Like, we don't have that. Haven't you seen Infinity War? I'm like, yeah, it's a movie. That didn't really happen. You know that, right? I was funny because I know you got to go to, but I did at the time when I was doing, when I was working on the Tony Stark, and I said, do me a favor. I could only do like the, do me a favor. And it was kind of there. And Evans goes, that doesn't sound like him. I was like, oh, no, it's good enough. He's like, no, it's not. I was like, okay, you're killing me. Now he's like, I got you. I was like, all right, whatever.
So but, I'm going to give you my favorite Tom Hiddleston story. And this is why Tom is so great. We were at Seattle. I believe this was the year before you went, may have been the year you went. Was Tom Hiddleston at the one that you went to?
No, it must have been the year before.
Right. So it was the year before. And a little kid comes up, got to be 5-6 years old, head to toe Loki, full Loki, horns, outfit, everything. Kid's with his dad. And this is what I mean about you're meeting your superheroes. You're not meeting, there's no differentiation between Loki and Tom Hiddleston. He is Loki.
Yeah.
So there's photos on the table. And the dad takes a photo for Tom to sign. And the kid is looking at the photo. Kid is looking down at the photo, looking up at Tom multiple times, looking down at the photo. Can't believe it. Kid's dressed as Loki. Can't believe it. He's looking down at the photo, looking up at Tom, looking down, looking up. He's like, you know what the kid is thinking to himself, like, this is Loki. So Tom is sitting at the table, leans over the table like this, and immediately, like, you know, there's like a facial expression to Loki and there's a body expression to Loki. Okay. He leans over the table and he does that evil smile and he looks at the kid. He goes, yes, it's me. And the kid like freaks out. Kid's like, oh my God. Like the kid like is just like, oh my God. And that's Tom Hiddleston.
I could just imagine. Yes, it's me.
That's right. The evil smile, the grin, like right there, right on the spot. And that's why he is who he is. So,
yeah, and like I said, they're all great, but he might have been, you couldn't find a kinder, nicer, gentler person than him. Again.
The great story with Tom is Kenneth Branagh and Anthony Hopkins all went to the same acting school in the UK. He said that's how Branagh found him. Anthony, he said would tease him on the set, but Anthony told me that Anthony had told him to sort of embrace the role, that, you know, the way that he embraced the Hannibal Lecter role, that's he said he played paupers and princes and thieves and blah, 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 blah. But everybody stops him and says,
I'll tell you, I could not believe all the things, and everybody does a lot of stuff, but the things Tom Hiddleston would do for people in those pictures, you're like, oh my gosh, nobody's that nice. Like he would, somebody tried to get him. There was one story I heard down the line somewhere, but somebody tried to get him to, like read something in another language. And he's like, I can't. Turns out like they were trying to get him to propose. Oh my God. You ever hear that story? Like maybe that's just a story.
He's the king of the facial. He's got the face, his acting is so much with his face and his body. He's so remarkable in that way. I think, I think he's going to be around for a long time. Frank, thank you. This was great. Amazing. This was awesome.
Yeah, we belted it out in 15 minutes.
Yeah. This is going to be a two-parter. Two-parter. For sure. I had a feeling it was that. You've done a great job tonight. We really appreciate it. Yeah, anybody who has any comments about this, let us know. If you like Frank's impressions, let us know. If you don't, then don't bother telling us because it doesn't matter.
And you're a liar. You're a liar.
You're a liar. We don't care. No. But thank you very much.
There you go. They're gone now.
So we'll see you next week on the next episode of Life's Tough. Superheroes are tougher.